Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing great because I finally have more Battlefield 6 content to talk about again. Yippee, maybe I could not get a video that performs like absolute crap. Thank you, new YouTube algorithm. I love you so much. Nah, but in all seriousness, I am actually very excited to be talking about Battlefield 6 again because this video is kind of the sequel to the one I made a few weeks ago, in which I discussed a certain YouTuber who had a breakdown on Twitter over the fact that the Battlefield 6 devs decided they were going to nerf the movement mechanics in the game, to which everybody unanimously responded, boo friggin' who. Stay mad that you can't abuse the movement to get easy kills, like it's Call of Duty and clip farm for your YouTube channel. Now, what actually happened recently is a YouTuber by the name of the Equa released some footage showing what the new movement nerfs looked like in action. And I'm gonna show you the clip here in a minute, but the biggest thing they changed is that you can't really jump shot anymore, because now when you jump and then ADS, there is a massive amount of sway with your barrel that actually affects where your bullets go. Truly terrible. I can't believe they would take away the ability for you to jump shot around corners in a game that's supposed to be grounded, gritty, and realistic. Now, this guy made a tweet about this in which he showed a clip from one of his recent videos. And so what I want to do in this video is read the tweet, then watch the clip posted with the tweet, and then we'll take a look at some replies. But really quickly, before we get into anything else, if you have continuously come back to the channel and you haven't subbed yet, please consider doing so. For every sub I get on this video, I will literally take a sip of water. So if I die from dehydration, that is on you. Congratulations. Nah, but in all seriousness, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this. So the tweet that started all of this said this: the Battlefield 6 movement nerfs in action, totally unwarranted, completely over nerfed. And then he attaches the clip that we're gonna look at in a second. And oh dear God, can we admire that ratio? 2.7k likes and 3.1k replies, many of which are ratioing him in terms of likes. I can't tell if this dude actually believes what he's saying or if he's just baiting for Twitter blue engagement. Something tells me he's not baiting though, which is kind of unfortunate for him, because that means he's truly upset at the fact that you cannot jump shot in this game anymore. So yeah, let's actually go ahead and watch the clip that he put along with the tweet, just to see his full thoughts on this nerf.
Found a good clip that showcases the Battlefield 6 movement / penalty changes from the BF6 beta to whatever build they were invited to play. This is from the Equa's channel, full credit to him. I'm going to provide a crosshair overlay on the screen here for center screen reference so you understand just how severe some of these penalties actually are. The point of aim in Battlefield 6 is tied to your weapon's front sight post. What that means is all the sway and wobble you see actually does affect where your bullets are going. Now, he's going to run back here, and when he tries to jump peek here, you will see just how severe the penalty actually is for using any sort of aggressive movement. Look at this. He's missing down, now he's missing up within like 3 bullets. So even if he tried to kill someone there, he would have missed every single shot. Same here, this is just a little baby jump peek. This is just a little baby jump peek, and look at this. Oh my God. Holy shit. Like,
I love how overly dramatic this guy is. He's like, oh, look how much you get penalized for using any sort of aggressive movement. My brother in Christ. There are more forms of aggressive movement besides just jump shotting. And yes, you get penalized for jump shotting because this is not a game like COD. This is Battlefield, and jump shotting is cringe. Also, I love how the way he makes his point is by slowing the footage down to like 0.25 times speed, zooming in all the way, and putting a crosshair on screen. This is the only way he can somehow make this look like an issue, by using every editing tool possible to make it look worse than it is. This reminds me of when the PS5 Pro was revealed, or really when any new console gets revealed, and companies are like, oh, you're gonna see such a difference in visuals, it's gonna be amazing, and then they show a side-by-side zoomed-in image to make their point. Like, if you have to do all this editing work to make your point, it's probably not that big of a deal. And just wait, it's about to get far worse.
I'm just gonna be honest, the movement in Battlefield 6 was nowhere near good enough to warrant any sort of nerf that we are seeing in this footage. This is over nerfed, no question about it. It was already quite difficult to implement aggressive movement in your gameplay in Battlefield 6. You had to time it correctly. There was a run-up period, right? And you can get caught while running up to try to perform a jump peek or to try to slide into a door frame, for instance. And I know a lot of people are going to celebrate these nerfs, but it is out of ignorance. They do not understand the negative effects this will have on gameplay.
I love it. I actually just love it. This dude unironically just said people are going to celebrate this out of ignorance. If you're happy that jump shotting is no longer effective in Battlefield 6, you are ignorant. And apparently not being allowed to jump shot is going to have extremely negative effects on the gameplay. No. Let's get something clear. It's going to have negative effects on your gameplay because you won't be able to sweat your ass off in background footage anymore. And you claim that the movement in the beta was nowhere near good enough to warrant this nerf. I'm just gonna let this footage play. Like, are we serious right now, dude? This wasn't too broken. They didn't need to nerf this. This problem that was at least in part caused by jump shotting, this didn't need to be nerfed. Look me in the eyes and tell me with a straight face that this didn't need to be nerfed. Yes, I understand I don't have eyes. Shut up. You all thought you were so funny in the comments last time I said that. Like, oh, well, actually, you don't have eyes. Look where they would be. How about that?
If you nerf a lot or all of the skill gap out of this movement system in a game with Battlefield 6's blisteringly fast time to kill, your gameplay will come to a complete and utter standstill. You won't see anything other than people standing in cover on a head glitch, just waiting for somebody to walk into their crosshairs. And regardless of if anyone wants to admit it or not, that is simply not how some of the best Battlefield games ever created played. There were aggressive movement options in a lot of the best Battlefield games ever created, such as Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, that are way more aggressive and quicker than the ones we see in Battlefield 6.
But you can still play aggressively in Battlefield 6. Just because you can't jump shot doesn't mean that you can't play aggressive. It's just that now you can't abuse the movement to do things that the devs didn't intend for you to do. And something that I do love is people like this who are arguing for the movement to stay like how it was would always argue, oh, well, barely anybody even used it. It was only certain people who did, which is true. Most people didn't actually abuse the movement, but the fact that it was abusable was still an issue. However, that then begs the question, if barely anybody was using this movement, how exactly is this going to affect the gameplay so negatively? Because if most people already weren't using this, then nothing is gonna change. People are still gonna play the game the way it was being played before, which are there people who will sit on head glitches and whatnot? Yes. But guess what? That's how Battlefield is. When you're holding an objective, you're gonna sit down in one spot and ADS an area so you can kill anybody who walks around there because you don't want them to take the objective. What you're describing sounds like pretty standard Battlefield gameplay. You've got your times where you gotta play aggressive and push an objective with your squad, and then you've got your times where you gotta hunker down and hold an area. And by the way, the fact that he's saying, oh, well, now there's gonna be people sitting in cover on head glitches when the gameplay in the background he's showing is on that mountain map, which infamously had people camping with snipers everywhere even before the movement nerfs, is just hilariously ironic. And I know he just mentioned at the end there that, oh, well, this isn't how the best Battlefield games ever made played. Just give it a second. We'll get to that.
Battlefield 4 had air strafing, jump peeking, crouch spamming. Battlefield 3 had weird vault tech you could use, Euro hip fire, jump peeking, and with both games, the sprint speed was significantly faster at a baseline. So in my opinion, the nerfs to Battlefield 6's movement system and some of the aim down sights penalties are completely unwarranted. Nothing about the Battlefield 6 beta's movement was overpowered in any way, shape, or form outside of bugs that should have been fixed anyway, but it's very important to separate bugged movement from the intended base game movement. The intended base game movement of Battlefield 6 in the beta was completely fine. It did take skill to implement and was not overpowered, as you really had to time it well, place it well, and make sure you basically were playing the game correctly in order to make it work for you.
Okay, I don't feel like this needs to be said, but I guess it does. Just because things like jump peeking were in previous Battlefield games doesn't mean they should be in this one. Like, what is the point you're making here? That because those games are good and they had those features, that means those features should be in the current game? That doesn't make any sense, because air strafing is not what made Battlefield 3 and 4 so great. It was just a mechanic that happened to be in a great game. And let's not forget as well, those games were made at a time where players were nowhere near as good at games, and people weren't abusing those broken exploits nearly as much. And let's also not forget that we are currently in a time where Battlefield seems to finally be getting its identity back, and people are rightfully scared that if any sort of advanced movement like this is allowed in the game, COD sweats are gonna come over and ruin it for everybody else, which nobody wants. Also, I love that he says, oh, well, the intended movement in the Battlefield 6 beta was just fine. Well, if that was the intended movement, then why are they nerfing it? Or better yet, as my roommate just pointed out, not nerfing it, they're fixing it. And this is one of the main arguments he's tried to make, is that, oh, well, that movement was just bugged anyway. All the movement in those crazy clips you were seeing on Twitter, that was bugged movement. So they need to fix that. Well, my guy, what if this is how they're fixing it? What if they're killing two birds with one stone by not only fixing the actual broken movement, as well as taking away the ability to do ridiculous jump shots and whatnot, because they don't want you to be able to do that in a grounded military shooter. You know, guys, I remember my grandpappy was telling me about World War II and how he jump shotted a bunch of Germans around a corner with an MP40, and he single-handedly won the Battle of D-Day by slide canceling and jump shotting. It was truly inspirational.
If you just tried to spam movement in Battlefield 6, you would instantaneously die and look like a moron. So I certainly hope some of these changes regarding Battlefield 6's movement and some of the ADS penalties are reconsidered, but if Battlefield 1 showed us anything, once movement is nerfed in Battlefield, it is essentially impossible to get it unnerfed.
Good. Most people don't want this getting unnerfed, and if it doesn't, that means you're gonna keep crying about it and I'll have more content, so I think that's a win-win all around. Also, I love how he brings up Battlefield 1, which is widely considered to be one of the best Battlefield games ever made, and he's like, oh, well, if we've seen anything from Battlefield 1, then they won't unnerf movement once they have nerfed it. I'm just sitting here like, great. But yeah, that's the entire video covered there. So now we're gonna go ahead and take a look at some replies that people left on this tweet and then his replies to those, because it's a little interesting. So first off, he actually responded to his own post and said, it's unclear at this point if you can mitigate the sway with attachments. Also, the replies to this just expose how few people understand what you can do with movement in previous Battlefield games. Taurus/career bipod Andes. I find it hilarious that this dude is calling other people Taurus, because apparently this dude is actually a pretty big Battlefield guy. But with the way he's been acting about this whole situation, you would think that he's never played a Battlefield game in his life. I said it before, but just because something was in an old Battlefield game does not mean it should be in this one. Is Battlefield 4 a great game? Yes. Are things like air strafing great parts of that game? No. Which actually brings us into the next tweet that I wanted to talk about. This guy responds and says, remember when in Bad Company 2 you couldn't even sprint and strafe at the same time? Or how you could not just climb over every obstacle in Battlefield 4? Or how the slide was only added in Battlefield 1? Taurus, all of these guys, let Battlefield be a slower paced game as it was meant to be. And then this guy replies and says, Bad Company 2 is not relevant to the modern Battlefield conversation. The goalpost shifting is absolutely incredible. You're not allowed to reference Bad Company 2 because this guy doesn't want you to. You can talk about any Battlefield from 3 onwards, but how dare you mention Bad Company 2? Because guess what? That disproves this dude's point. I'd also like to point out that the devs specifically said that Bad Company 2 was one of their biggest inspirations for this game. But what do I know, dude? I'm just some dumb casual Battlefield player. And oh, by the way, I'd like to show some footage I got earlier in Battlefield 4 before I recorded the gameplay you're seeing right now. You want to talk about how the sway of the gun was way too much of a nerf? Look at this! it was the exact same way in Battlefield 4, where if you jump shotted, your crosshair would sway around and your bullets wouldn't be accurate. So by your own logic, this change in Battlefield 6 was good because this is how it was in Battlefield 4. Alrighty, next up. Good, now you have to hit your shots, smiley face. And then this dude replies, post your gameplay. This is such a JTech TV ass reply. I have no argument to make against you, so I'm gonna demand you post your gameplay because somehow that will prove me right. Dude, shut the hell up. You have no argument, just admit it. You want the game to have insanely broken movements so you can abuse it and farm clips from it. At least FaZe Swag was honest about this when he made his video. This dude's trying to dance around it and be like, oh no, guys, come on, you're all just tourists. I just want what's best for the game. This is gonna ruin the game overall. We need this broken movement in the game. Please, guys, it's gonna make the game better. No, it's not. Just admit you want to abuse it. And guess what? If you want to do that, then go play Call of Duty. Speaking of Call of Duty, that leads into this tweet. Black Ops 7 is more your speed. That ratio, by the way, Jesus Christ. And then he replies, sorry, I don't play COD. Even if that is somehow true that you don't play COD, which I highly doubt, by the way, you are trying to play Battlefield like it is COD. You are playing Call of Duty, just you booted up the wrong game, you know what I mean? You're trying to play COD inside of Battlefield. Alright, and before we end this video, I really quickly want to take a look at one more tweet he just made while I'm recording this video that really just shows off his insane ego and level of arrogance. For a community that is so adamant with their beliefs, they sure know F all about anything. The largest community of people I've ever seen know absolutely nothing about how their favorite franchise plays. I need to do BF6 tutorial vids day one. That goes for other YouTubers too. Effing help me, lol. Correct and factual info about mechanics slash gameplay needs to be widespread. You ignorant asshole. This dude is like a fire hose of douchery. This is a pirate software level ego. Everybody in the entire community is wrong except for him. And now it is apparently the duty of him and other Battlefield YouTubers to make guides to put people in their places. Jesus Christ, I ran out of breath from that. I can't even fathom how up your own ass you have to be to make posts like this and unironically think that the thousands of people making fun of you are in the wrong and you alone are correct. Just admit you don't know what's best for the game. Why is it so hard for people to admit that they're wrong? I don't understand. If nothing else, I hope this teaches you all watching this right now to remain humble, because if you don't, you'll end up like this guy. This will remain his legacy from now on. The guy who tried to ruin Battlefield 6 with his terrible ideas because he wants insane movement in a game where it doesn't belong. And he is still saying dumb things as I'm making this video, but it's not worth talking about, honestly. I'm gonna lose my mind soon if I keep making this. So I think I'm gonna call it here. So yeah, guys, with all that being said, that is gonna do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more. Join us every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on the gaming channel for gaming streams. Also, consider becoming a member if you want Discord access and awesome emotes, and I will catch you all next time.